I always heard before I bought my watch, the Rolex, I always heard that watches were a good investment, or that over time watches go up in value. It was really hard for me to believe that, because I look at it as an investment, like a piece of property. I'm very heavily invested in real estate. But do watches always go up in value? And which watches generally go up in value the most, or what are some of the most popular watch brands, if you wouldn't mind elaborating on that?
Sure. I'm going to say it again. I'm a watch enthusiast. I do this because I love the watches, but there is a side of watches where they can appreciate in value, like you mentioned. Um, I think the way that you can kind of look at watches as a investment vehicle is, as a person, you should have diversified assets that can generate some sort of passive income for you, if you want to describe it that way. I think watches are a tangible asset class that you can get into. It's not going to be your bread and butter. It's not going to be your to the moon shot sort of investment. But I think it is a way that you can take a little bit of money that you may have, put it into something that you enjoy, and basically benefit from the appreciation of those watches. Be a watch enthusiast first, and then you can reap the benefits of the investment side of things. I think there's obviously big case studies. Rolex is a big name that everyone knows. I did an article, I think at the beginning of this year, looking at some of the different references that I think have gone up in value tremendously from Rolex and Omega. As an example, there's a watch called the Rolex Submariner. It's nicknamed the Hulk. It's basically a Submariner with a green dial and a green bezel. I looked at it, what the values were 10 years ago and what it was now. It was about 173% increase over that time period. So 10 years, 173%, it's a decent return, but not every watch is going to do that. I think if you want to get into this, I think it's about finding watches that basically collectors love. The reason why the Rolex Submariner is a great example, because people love sports watches. They love sort of the history of dive watches. Sports watches are kind of fit their lifestyle. So if you find those types of watches in other brands, you could benefit from the appreciation of them over time. So I think Rolex is a great example. Omega has a lot of potential. I did a similar sort of study on those watches too. Not as large returns as Rolex, but Rolex is sort of it feels like a commodity to me. Rolex is another great example. Some other brands that maybe are less known but still could appreciate in value. I think Tudor, they create very similar watches to Rolex, and so because of that, a lot of people are saying, I don't have to spend $8,000-9,000. I could spend $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 and still get a similar feel to the watch. And so more and more people are getting into Tudor. And I think the last one I want to talk about is Longines. I think Longines is a Swiss brand that I think they did a lot right, and they also did a lot wrong in some of their watches. But I think right now they're sort of on that right path. They've kind of pulled on their heritage a little bit more, and that's pulling in more and more collectors. So I think there's some potential for them there too. But I will say, this is not investment advice. I simply just talking from a passion perspective.
That's awesome.